you're wondering how we knew that.
Never gonna catch on, are ya?
Welcome to another video. I'm going to try to be concise. I'm going to try to be hyper-focused. We're going to look at the logistics of gang stalking. We're going to look at the multi-dimensional level of harassment. Okay, and I'll try to be quick. I'll try to do this in a way that everybody understands. Think of a hypercube, okay, or think of a cube or a tesseract. Think of different dimensions. Think of something that's multidimensional, okay. Think, for example, of how it is that if you're going to use the spiritual foundation of this, which is what I always do, how is it possible to be dealing with invisible beings from another dimension? People talk about poltergeist activity, or hauntings, or demon possession. How is it possible to have prophecy? How is it that people have foreknowledge or know things before they happen? Well, it depends on what you mean by that. Okay. So in the hypothetical scenario that we're presenting here, if you look at the hypercube, if you look at something like a tesseract, we'll say that space-time is located within that space, somewhere within the hypercube or the tesseract. In a different dimension, we have space-time. We have a physical universe. Actually, looking at a cube is actually kind of primitive because it does not allow for infinity. So actually, we're probably going to have to make that a circle. We're going to have to think out of the box and turn it into a sphere. Now that we've allowed for infinity, let's delve into this. Okay. Now I want you to imagine the different dimensions. I want you to imagine multi-levels, whatever, however many that you want. Okay. And I want you to imagine that they intersect in a way where they're either in close proximity, layered on one another, or something like that. Okay, however you want to imagine that. Okay, now I want you to imagine different beings that live inside this sphere. Okay, we'll say that one of them has the ability to pick up all the signals and vibrations that are located within all the dimensions, sectors that encompass the whole sphere. Okay, and then we'll say another set of beings is able to pick up a lot of them, and then we'll say that there is a more primitive being that can only pick up certain ones. And of course, for the sake of this hypothetical construct, that would be a physical dimension like the one that you live in. Okay, you cannot see, for example, AM radio waves, just like an AM radio can't pick up Wi-Fi. It doesn't mean it's not there; it just can't see it. Okay, the perception of the creature is limited. We'll say that being is spiritual, but of course it lives within a vessel that is primitive and made up of matter that is also subject to different frequencies and vibrations, but it does not have the perceptual faculties to really know about the other dimensions or see the other beings. Now that we've laid out the basic framework, let's again look at foreknowledge. Okay. There are a lot of different views on God's omniscient foreknowledge, for example, that he just knows everything. He can't learn anything. There isn't any succession of time or perception that would give him any more knowledge than he's already got. Well, that would seem to contradict the scriptures, wouldn't it? For example, in Genesis 6:6, when God partially destroys the planet with the flood, he regretted making man on the earth. Well, how's that possible? If he knew, right, or if he determined it, like the determinists, when you get into the philosophical Gnostic Christian perspective, well, that was just part of his plan, right? And so the communication that is coming out of the word would be obviously contradictive. Okay, you can't have both. It would have to be inaccurate. Either that's a miscommunication and he didn't regret it, he knew it all along, or he regretted it. Okay, you can't have both. Or Hezekiah, right? God said, "Get your things together. You're going to die," and he wept bitterly before the Lord. and God changed his mind and gave him 15 more years. Not only that, but he made the sundial go backwards, okay, which would demonstrate not only that God had control over the construct, but he had the freedom to change his mind and to exist simultaneously in all the dimensions at once, or for the sake of argument, omnipresence. Now, we haven't gotten that far into this, but someone might say, well, wait a minute here. Okay, so if God knows the end, how is it that there are possibilities in the in-between time? Okay. Right? It's from the beginning to the end. If God knows the end, then he knows everything that's going to happen. Is it even feasible that there are possibilities within that middle time frame or that middle knowledge that could be changed that would not affect the outcome? Well, there is. There's actually a lot of possibilities. Okay, we're going to take a look at that right now. Okay, imagine a city like New York. You've got a population of around 8.5 million people. Now, we'll say that we're going to compare that to the population of the world throughout time. And we'll say that, by and large, at least the biblical criteria would say that most of the world is going to reject God, going to reject the gospel, and they are going to be under the tyranny of the kingdom of Satan. And we'll say 10% of the people are going to make it. Okay, so we'll just say hypothetically that 10% of the people of New York City change their mind throughout that time frame. We'll look at New York from the beginning of its inception to the end or to the modern day. And we'll say that 10% of the people that have comprised the great city of New York uh, did something completely different from what we had throughout the passage of time up until now. Would New York still be there? Okay, would the things that we've experienced still happen? Of course. Okay, you're looking at about 150,000 people, and that's not going to stop the major flow of what you're dealing with. Now, as far as the world is concerned, and the tyranny of Satan, the prince of the power of the air, right? In that construct, they would be the beings that have a lot more perception and interaction within the construct than we do in our little physical realm. Okay, they are ruling over us. Okay, and they are manipulating the majority of the population, and they are using that type of dimensional foreknowledge or perspective to accomplish some of that tyranny. Now, of course, God is sovereign, but he has allowed Satan to have this rule over the world and the principalities and powers, or Satan's angels, or however you want to look at that. Remember, when he tempted Christ, he said that all of the kingdoms of the earth have been given to him, and he can give them to whoever he wants. Right. Now, we'll say that these beings, these higher level beings that have this different perspective, they have choreographed and orchestrated a plan. They have combined all of their resources and they have used them from that dimensional perspective. They have already decided what they are going to do, the equations that they are going to use. They have looked at the needs and the ways that these creatures can be manipulated, and they have set out these equations, and they have delusions, they have deceptions, they have all these things lined out, and it's basically like a bunch of dominoes. You just hit the first one and you watch it go, and they know exactly where it is going, and anyone who does not try to break away from that, okay, or reach out to God, is inevitably caught up in that mechanism. Now, that's only one of the ways that there are possibilities. Now, remember, well, you might say, well, wait a minute now. You got to go all the way back. How is it that God doesn't know, or he is learning things? How is it possible for God to learn things but still know what's going to happen? Well, it's very possible. Remember that we are dealing with that part of the construct that involves space-time. He is outside of that. Not only that, but he created the construct. Okay, if someone is going to invite you over for breakfast, they don't. We'll just say they have a bare piece of property. They have to create a house. They have to build the house. They have to put in the kitchen. They have to put in the stove. They have to put a table in the kitchen. They have to invite you over, and you have to walk into it. Okay, similar to what you were dealing with. Everything was created by God. God is the creator of the construct.
And until he created that construct, until he created that dimension that involves space time, the physical dimension within the construct, he didn't know it was going to happen. But being outside of that and being omnipresent, being able to be within all those layers simultaneously, once it was created, he had the ability to see what was going to happen. And knowing by simple math that most of the people of the population of the world would end up going along with Satan and his plan with his kingdom, you would have that expected end. But if people would break away from that mechanism, there's the possibilities. Okay, so you have the infiltration of that type of free moral agency within this Machiavellian type construct that is designed to deceive, manipulate, and control people. Let me say that again in a different way. Okay, so within the parameters of the construct, God can allow free moral agency and still be sovereign because people are making choices within the parameters of his construct, okay? Which he has decided all the laws of the physical universe and so on and so forth, the frequencies and whatever you want to put within that created order, okay? Then he also has the free choice to intervene whenever he wants or let it work out naturally, okay? And he also has the free choice to give it over within the parameters of the created order to, in this example, Satan. Okay, when we go back to the fall of the Garden of Eden. So when people add those two things together, what do we have? Okay, we have an expected end. We have an undeniable mathematical equation that people are going to be deceived. They're going to go along with it. We also have different possibilities. What are those? That people have the free choice to break away from that, and also that God has the free choice to do what he wants within that construct, and he's still not going to change that expected end because he is not violating the free will or moral agency of these beings. Okay? He can decide to judge, he can decide to kill or make alive or do whatever he wants, but that expected end is based upon the free moral agency or free will choices that either the angels or the men make. Okay? And he can do what he wants, but that alone, right there, the axiom of faith of what men believe and what these angels are going to do is going to determine their fate. And that's the major flow, as in the example of New York City. Okay? It's not changing the expected end. So as far as an individual is concerned, that would line up with what we see in the Bible, whether Satan is asking to sift the apostles or to test their faith. So if he knew every single thing that was going to happen concerning every individualistic person, well, he wouldn't need to do that, would he? That would be ridiculous. Okay, so it's either baloney or there's got to be a way to explain this. Now, concerning targeted individuals, by and large, they are not people that go along with the flow. However, they have been thrown into this construct in a different way, and I've talked about the fact that they are being used for coercion, experimentation, and to legitimize other agendas like psychiatry or the obfuscation of spiritual activity that would lead other men astray in this little construct that we're dealing with. Of course, they can never know the reality of what's happening. The truth must be obfuscated. Okay? Now, with all that said, we've talked about the fact that there are people who know about what's happening to you. There are a percentage of people in the world that know about group harassment or that are on the inside of Freemasonry, of the higher levels of Freemasonry. All the other people are kept in the dark, right? It's similar to that. But what if someone decided that they wanted to break away from that mechanism? Okay. Especially people who find out that there's spiritual wickedness or things that are demonic. Okay. Well, you have to have a way to prevent that. I've talked about that with targets, that when people see what is happening to you, that is a very high level of deterrence. And as far as the government goes, dealing with whistleblowers, it's pretty much the same thing. If you want to go in the government aspect of this, you have people who are involved in things that are ridiculously evil and illegal. Okay? And if any of them were to have a crisis of conscience, well, there's got to be a way to discredit them. And what do? You drive them nuts. They're crazy. You drive them to suicide. You shut them up however you can. So I've given you a crude map. Put all the logistics together, whether you're dealing with the secret societies, whether you are dealing with the government, whether you are dealing with the spiritual dimension, whether you are dealing with the foreknowledge of God. How do all these things fit together? Well, they fit together quite easily, actually. And the logistics of gang stalking, when you involve the spiritual application and move on down from the top down, it makes perfect sense. Not everyone has to be a government employee or a Freemason now or talking to people at the fusion centers. There's a lot of aspects, there are a lot of facets to gang stalking, and there are a lot of ways that these things work. So when targets are confronted with things that seem to defy the laws of our physical universe, or the possibilities that we understand as those primitive creatures in that construct, or you're dealing with things that seem clairvoyant, right? Or that people are reading your mind, or they know where you're going to go in advance. They're pre-wiring your apartment, or they're waiting for you at the hotel, or 3 states away, or in the other country, wherever. That is how this works. And that master equation that is going to take the majority of the population of the planet into destruction involves themes. It involves facets. It's not by mistake that targeted individuals have a lot of commonalities in what they experience. And in order to attack people en masse and brainwash them like that, that is how it is accomplished. And then they rewire the target to process information in a personal way. They attack people with different themes and mechanisms that are already out there and pre-planned. And you're dealing with synchronicities, you're dealing with all those things, and the target is bamboozled. They are deceived and they are taken captive. As individuals living in this construct, or as targeted individuals, we are subject to the tyranny of the kingdom of darkness. But remember, Christ has already had victory. The gospel of Jesus Christ has infiltrated the world, and soon he will return. Now, after presenting this, I'd like to say that these things are obviously hypothetical. Okay? I don't know if I'm right. Okay? For all I know, God does know everything, and there's nothing that he can learn. There's no way that he can come upon any new information, and I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Okay? Maybe it's just for our benefit that he speaks the way he does and communicates with us that way because he's so higher than us that it just has to be that way. Maybe that's the way it is. Okay, I don't know, but I don't see that when I look at the scriptures. Okay, I don't see God doing that. I don't see him meticulously determining things. I see him, letting the angels and the men that he created work things out according to free choice. God is interacting with the beings that he has created, and there are also obvious possibilities and things that God is either choosing or he is testing people or the devil is testing them. He wanted to sift the apostles, he wanted to test them. Well, none of that makes any sense unless there are possibilities, okay? Unless everything isn't completely fixed, at least on an individualistic basis. But like I said, for all I know, concerning God, what do I know? Okay, I'm just a delivery guy, right? I'm just somebody who's making YouTube videos. I've only been around for about a half a century. But even when you get into the wheels of Ezekiel, you're dealing with Babylonian iconography. A lot of people will say, well, those are spaceships. That's what that is. Well, no. Oh, that's talking about God's throne and that he is ruler over his creation, over time and space, and that the pagan gods of Babylon are false. Okay, that they are imposters, and he wanted his people to know that the God of Israel is the ruler over all creation, space, and time, and his throne is above everything, and he sees everything. Hopefully, this video has helped someone out. It is my goal to free people from the tyranny of their harassment and to help them form a balanced, salient landscape of what is happening to them concerning gang stalking. And I'd like to thank all of you for watching. I'd like to thank everyone who helps support the channel. The link is in the descriptions. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to hit the like button. God bless. Be good to yourselves. Be safe.